So joining us now in our desperate search for information is Wyoming Senator and Republican Conference Chair, Mr. John Barrasso. Senator, welcome back to the show. I hardly know where to start, but I know that you'll have as many answers as possible. First up, sir, is there going to be a vote on a continuing resolution today, as I guess Senator Schumer suggested? Do you think there's going to be CR today?
More likely tomorrow, but the government will continue to function. The government will not shut down tomorrow.
And that CR would take us through about when?
December, into December.
And it won't have a debt ceiling in it?
No, it will not, which of course was the contention there. The Democrats wanted to raise the debt ceiling as part of the continuing resolution. The Democrats are going to be the ones that are going to have to raise the debt ceiling themselves. They want to do massive blowout spending. Every Republican is against it, and we're surely not going to give them the blank check that they want. We're going to make them put in a dollar figure. If you write a check, you want to know how much it's for. The Democrats want a blank check to continue to spend all the way through the 2022 election. We're not going to allow it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, Senator. In the past, debt ceilings have, I won't say always, but usually had a dollar figure to it, as you just said, and they also had a date certain. And many of them, Senator, as you may recall, had spending limitations in them, going all the way back to Graham Rudman Hollings in the mid-1980s when I was down there working for Reagan, right through 2013. We may break the limits, but they usually have limits. But I'm just saying to people, don't hold your breath for spending limits right now.
Well, whenever you have a 50-50 Senate, that should be a mandate to go to the middle. And whenever you're at this point where the debt ceiling needs to be raised, that forces or supposed to force a discussion about ways to get spending under control. You know, Ronald Reagan did it with Tip O'Neill, and even Barack Obama came out with the Bowles-Simpson effort to talk about getting the mandatory spending in this country under control. The Democrats don't want to do that this time. They're not interested at all in talking to Republicans. What they want to do is spend and spend and spend all the way through the time that they lose the House and lose the Senate in 2022.
By the way, Bill Clinton, he cut a deal with Newt Gingrich. Remember, the era of big government was over? I missed that, Senator Barrasso, the era of big government. Now, the era of big government being over didn't last all that long, but it was a start for a few years. But here we are. The left is fighting the far left, as I'm sure you know. Senator, can I ask you something? There's been no mark yet released from the Senate Finance Committee on taxes. Now, we have a Ways and Means mark, which purports to raise $2 trillion. Which is less than the $4.3 trillion in the House budget mark. But there's nothing coming out of the Senate, Senator Wyden's committee. I'm hearing wild and crazy things like, because there's a gap and the pay-fors don't pay for, we're going to have more taxes. And some of those more taxes, Senator Barrasso, might include a carbon tax, an emissions tax, an import tax on emissions, maybe a higher corporate tax. I'm kind of worried about this. What are you hearing? Does anybody know what Senate Finance is doing?
Well, only Ron Wyden knows what he's doing there. He hasn't even been meeting with the members of his own party, let alone with the Republicans. But you got the math right earlier when you talked about how much spending they wanted to do. And they're going to have to raise a lot more in taxes, because remember what Joe Biden tweeted out, that the cost of the bill was going to be nothing. Look. The American people are smart enough to not believe the president here. The people of Wyoming understand fully that if this gets passed, the bill is going to be passed on to them. They're going to be left holding the bill for this massive government expansion. And who's going to pay? Everybody's going to pay. They're going to get paid on. They're going to pay off with taxes on their retirement savings, on income, on small businesses. And when you go through this bill, this 2,500 page bill, what you find is a whole new army of IRS agents. And Larry, for your viewers, and certainly people in Wyoming who value their personal security and privacy, Janet Yellen wants to be able to rifle through people's checking accounts. They want reported to the government every check that is deposited or written for over $600. Includes your rent checks. I mean, if it's a car payment, think about the number of checks that you write that are over $600. The IRS is going to have a right to go through all of these things, looking for ways to squeeze more money out of the American taxpayers. To me, this is a fundamental effort to interfere with our own personal freedom, security, privacy. I mean, this is big brother government, and Joe Biden would be big brother.
And as I understand it on that key point, the IRS wants to know the inflows, not just the outflows, but they want to know what's coming in above, I think $600 is the last I heard. But they want to know where it's coming from. Now, all this stuff is steps way over the edge. Is this going to be in reconciliation? Is that what this is angling for?
That's where the Treasury Secretary wants it. That's where the Democrats want it. And Larry, I've already gotten 2,500 letters from Wyoming, and we're a state of only 500,000 people. So that's a significant number of our population who is already aware of what the Democrats are trying to do with an invasion of their privacy, and why everyone in Wyoming is coming to me saying, stop this bill. This is not good for America.
So let me get this right. No one knows what's going to come out of Ron Wyden's committee. And I'm sure you've heard the rumors about carbon taxes, emission taxes or fees on imports, which would probably trigger big trade hostilities, higher corporate tax. You mentioned of course, this IRS tax gap stuff is not going to yield anything. It never does. But am I on the right path here? Is the Senate Finance Committee going to feel compelled to raise a lot more money than, even on paper, the $2 trillion of the Ways and Means Committee in the House?
Well, we're hoping that this never even gets out of the House. If it gets to the Senate, we're going to make sure we can stop it every step of the way. You know, so much focus, however, Larry, has been on the cost, and the cost is staggering, and the payments are staggering. But the other part of this is the content, which is, to me, even more troubling of what is in this bill. We are talking about big government socialism here, where it undermines the work ethic in America. That's what they're really doing. I mean, you mentioned Bill Clinton earlier. Remember when he said we're going to end welfare as we know it? Now they're talking about bringing back welfare as they knew it from back then. You know, we need a social safety net to help people, you know, don't fall through the cracks, help them get back up on their feet, their full potential, realize that in life. But there is a dignity to work in terms of somebody's identity, their self-worth, the way they view themselves. All of those things apply. And yet with this legislation, it's dividing that away. Work from the government, this is being basically, you're seeing people that are going to get checks to not work and undermining the social fabric of America. That, to me, is the real problem with the content of this, and why I call it big government socialist bill. Yeah,
no, I couldn't agree more. I think it's well said, sir. What about this idea that President Biden and the White House and so forth will mansionize this, by which they mean downsize, by which I guess Senator Joe Manchin has said he wants $1 to $1.5 trillion, and Senator Kyrsten Sinema says she doesn't want a corporate tax hike. What are the odds that this will be mansionized or downsized or somethingized?
Well, I talk to them regularly on the issues, because Joe Manchin and I work closely together on the Energy Committee. He's the chairman. I'm the ranking member. We spent a couple of hours yesterday together. I talked to both of them yesterday. They are not at all happy with this $3.5 trillion bill. And my focus is not just lowering the price tag. My focus is eliminating some of these policies, which I think would be so detrimental to our nation and our nation in the future.
Last one. Janet Yellen yesterday said we're going to run out of money to cover the debt expense and the interest expense on October 18th. Since it looks like that bill has to be in reconciliation, did Yellen, in effect, give us a deadline of October 18th? So let the games end by then, or you just think it's going to go on for quite a while?
Well, it could potentially go on by then. The Democrats have the votes in the House, the votes in the Senate. They have the White House to do this in reconciliation. They are responsible for the kind of spending they want to do between now and the next election. They need to put in a dollar figure on that check. Not going to be a blank check. They want to go it alone. They don't want to talk about cutting spending and getting our obligations under control. They want to add additional obligations, additional entitlements, and there's a long list of them in this long, big bill that they have, this reckless tax and spending bill. We need to make sure the Democrats own all this added-on debt. They're going to need to do it. Republicans are not going to rubber stamp their spending, Larry.
All right. Senator John Barrasso, thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Hope to see you soon.